Welcome to Echoes of My Imagination. My name is Tracy Lee. Sit back, relax, let me tell you a story. Today's story is part 2 of The Jar of Living Fire. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I recommend you do that first. Let's get into it. Chapter 4, The Ritual Awakening. You could feel it in the chest, a slow, steady pressure, not pain, not fear, but the undeniable weight of life in stone, metal, and liquid. In the center, the largest jar waited. Its seal glowed faintly with a blue aura. The heat rose in waves, brushing the skin, making the hair along the arms stiff. The guardians paused around it, legs flexing, eyes fixed. One reached a stiff limb towards the vessel, sensing the pulse inside. The air seemed to thrum as if holding its breath. And then, with the smallest hiss and a ripple through the liquid, the jar responded. The blue flame climbed the lip, not spilling, not burning stone or water, but igniting the heartbeat of the hull. And in that moment, the buried hull was no longer just stone and metal. It was alive. It was waiting. It was a network of fire, guardians, and stone that had been asleep for centuries, now stretching toward the light, ready to move, ready to awaken. The heat was thick, insistent, a reminder that what had been sealed away for so long was not gone. It was simply waiting. The air in the hall thickened the moment the first steps crossed the threshold. Heat rose in subtle waves, brushing skin, curling around the neck and shoulders. Every breath carried the scent of stone, dust, and something faintly metallic, like iron in rainwater. The torchlight flickered against the walls, revealing spirals and channels etched deep into basalt, each line humming faintly, vibrating in the rhythm with the hidden pulse of the chamber. At the center, the massive jar waited. The black liquid inside quivered as though alive, reflecting the faint glimmer of the torches. Its blue flame curled along the lip, thin and steady, defying water and gravity alike. The seal had been broken, but not fully. The vessel seemed to breathe, waiting for the precise moment, the precise movement, the precise intent that would allow it to speak. The guardians stirred immediately, spider-limbed, bronze-black, their joints flexing with careful precision. Eyes glimmering in pairs, trios, more than the mind could count, tracking each movement, responding to the pulse of the jar. One shifted along the floor, legs tracing the carved channels, nudging a smaller jar with a delicate pressure. Sparks jumped from the flame, kissing its limbs, but never burning. Instead, they ignited motion, a slow, deliberate rhythm. A figure stepped closer, hands steady. Fingers traced the glyphs carved into the stone before lifting toward the jar. The guardians paused, tensed, their forms taut like drawn cords. The black liquid stirred, rising slightly, responding to presence, responding to motion. Heat thickened in the chest. The air itself seemed to pulse. The ritual began, not with words, but with precise movement. Fingers pressed along channels, tracing spirals in the stone. Legs flexed and shifted, mapping patterns on the floor. The blue flame shivered, stretching towards the guardians, connecting them to the jar and to the channels along the walls. The largest sentinel raised its limbs, tracing a delicate arc in the air, eyes fixed on the vessel. Every jar in the hall vibrated faintly in response. Small ripples traveled along the surface of the black liquid inside. Sparks leapt from flame to metal to stone, weaving invisible lines across the chamber. Heat surged, pressing against skin, curling hair along arms, pooling in the chest. Sweat beaded along foreheads, but no one flinched. The rhythm demanded focus, precision, attention. The slightest misstep could still the pulse, extinguish the connection. The figure moved deliberately, tracing the final arc across the central jar. The black liquid quivered violently, then stabilized, glowing with an inner pulse. The blue flame leapt higher, sending threads of light along the walls, igniting every carved channel, every symbol, every corner of the chamber. The guardians flexed in unison, stepping into a pattern older than the walls, older than the stones, older than the memory of kings. And then it happened. The hall breathed in sync. The fire pulsed in a slow rolling rhythm. The guardian's limbs moved fluidly, tracing the lines of the chamber, activating hidden depressions in the stone, tilting jars so the liquid shimmered like a river of night. Sparks jumped from jar to jar, connecting vessels across the hall, creating a lattice of light and heat that seemed to draw the entire chamber into a single, living organism. The central jar's flame stretched high, then curved downward in arcs that danced across the guardian's limbs. Heat pooled and thickened, pressed on ears and skin, vibrating in the chest. The guardians bent, crouched, traced patterns no human could fully grasp. Yet the pulse was unmistakable. The ritual had succeeded. The fire, the jar, the guardians, the hall, all moved as one, alive, breathing, aware. And for a moment the chamber waited, suspended in a heartbeat of light and heat. Then the pulse steadied, slower now, deeper, a rhythm that promised the continuation of an ancient cycle. Whatever had slept in the hall for centuries had awakened. The ritual was complete. The guardians were alive in purpose. The fire sang in pulse. The black liquid shimmered, and the buried hall had truly stirred. Nothing outside could touch it. Water could not extinguish it. Air could not scatter it. The world above remained unaware, but deep in the stone, beneath centuries of silence, life had returned in metal, liquid, and flame. The first stage of awakening was over, but the story, the movement, the pulse, it was only the beginning. Chapter 5. The Cataclysm. The pulse in the buried hall had grown strong, rhythmic, and insistent, like the heartbeat of Earth itself. The blue fire stretched and quivered, threads of light spilling across walls and floor, following the channels carved long before kingdoms existed. The guardians moved in perfect unison, each step precise, each joint articulating with the weight of centuries. But the hall had grown too eager. The jars quivered, some tilting just slightly, spilling faint rivulets of black liquid across stone. Sparks leapt further, striking carved channels and igniting patterns that had been dormant for ages. The liquid shimmered, writhing, alive, seeking new vessels, new forms to inhabit. One sentinel misstepped, just a fraction. A spark jumped beyond its control. A small jar cracked. The black liquid hissed, surging, climbing the walls in invisible threads. The blue flame thickened, spreading upward, pressing against the ceiling, curling toward the tunnels that led deeper, toward chambers that had lain untouched since the world was young. The heat intensified, sweat poured from those present. Stone cracked. A low rumble ran along the floor, rising like the tide, like a warning. The guardians paused, then bent, limbs flexing in unnatural ways, responding not to human command, but to the pulse of the hall, the will of the black liquid. Sparks leapt between jars. Flame reached into channels carved in stone, igniting hidden reservoirs of energy no one had dared touch for centuries. Then the first breach occurred. A massive jar shattered, spilling its black liquid in a wave that climbed the walls and pooled on the floor. The blue flame raced across its surface, not consuming, not dying, but spreading. A living pulse of light and heat. The guardians surged forward, bronze limbs striking stone, activating chambers, unlocking niches, tilting other jars, releasing more liquid, more fire, more movement. The hall was alive now, no longer contained. Heat rolled like waves. Sparks leapt across gaps. Shadows danced violently along the walls. The pulse of the chamber thrummed in every stone, every pillar, every joint of the guardians. Feet and hands pressed to the floor could feel it, a vibration deep, primal, undeniable. Water from a small seeped pool tried to touch the flame. It hissed, evaporated instantly, forming steam that carried the smell of metal and wet stone. The fire did not die. It answered. Sparks struck the guardians, and their limbs flexed faster, tracing new lines along the floor and walls, tapping into hidden grooves, unlocking chambers that had slept for millennia. The hall groaned. Dust rained from the ceiling. Some of the smaller jars were shattered under the pressure, sending black liquid into crevices where it shimmered with a blue pulse, crawling along stone like a tide. The guardian's movement became a web of unstoppable rhythm, flowing over every surface, reacting to the liquid, the fire, and the very architecture. The ritual had gone too far. The pulse of the chamber could no longer be contained. Heat pressed against every surface. The air quivered. Every carved channel hummed in resonance. Sparks leapt, collided, and ignited new paths. The guardians surged, their bronze limbs striking with the power of storms. The hall shook, a low vibration through walls, pillars, and floor, carrying outward into the tunnels beyond. Above, the surface remained silent. No one knew what slept beneath the stone, what had awakened, what had erupted in ancient pulse and light. But below, in the buried hall, the cataclysm raged. Not chaos, not destruction, but life. A power so old, so precise, so exacting, it could not be stopped. The guardians moved faster, the flame stretched higher, and the black liquid shimmered, a living, writhing force that sought, always, to complete the hall's pulse. And in that heat, that light, that pulse, a warning was clear. The fire, the guardians, the hall. They were not toys for the curious, not tools for the impatient. They were the heartbeat of the world that had existed long before history and would endure long after. The cataclysm was not an end. It was an awakening, and it had only just begun. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining me for Echoes of My Imagination. My name is Tracy Lee. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and follow. And join me next time for part 3 of A Jar of Living Fire.